So we'll be starting in about 1 minute. Good afternoon. This is Sally Rood from the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices, and I want to thank each of you for being on this bidders call. On the call, we're going to talk about a new NGA two-year project focused on state business regulations. The project will involve a cohort of states who will be competitively selected to participate in the project. So in this call, we'll discuss why business regs are important to NGA, to governors and states, and we'll also provide an overview of the benefits to states of participating in the Policy Academy. As background, we'll talk about the Pew research that's been done on this topic, the Pew research and some examples of states that have already addressed this area in some way or another, and the 5 identified steps for data collection that emerged from that earlier Pew research project. And then we're going to do a deeper dive into the Policy Academy project itself and the required content for the state proposals and also the state selection criteria. We'll have time for questions at the end from all the state officials on this call, which will end by 3. And I just want to thank you once again for your interest in this topic and for taking the time to be with us on the call this afternoon. So in addition to me, Sally Rood, also on the call today are first my colleague Martin Simon, who directs the Economic Opportunity Division at the NGA Center. Second, Sharon Pearson from our partnering organization, the Pew Charitable Trusts. And Candace Driscoll from the NGA Economic Opportunity Division, who will be chiming in for the Q&A portion at the end.
Good afternoon. This is Martin Simon. I'll add my thanks to Sally's for those of you that have joined this call and are interested in this Policy Academy project that's focusing on removing barriers for the businesses in your state. Doing this, we believe, will strengthen state economies and state competitiveness. States can, of course, make choices related to your regulatory regimes. One approach to improving state regulatory processes with the goal of removing barriers is to eliminate or reduce a state's regulatory requirements. Another approach, though, involves proactive partnering with businesses to help them handle the state's regulatory processes. There are simple examples of states doing the second option, again, proactively helping business through state processes. And there are some complex and simple examples. Let me just share a couple of those. A simple example might involve a state establishing a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs to register a new startup. A more complex example might involve simplifying a state's procedures for business compliance with state environmental laws or regulations. When states work more proactively with businesses, no matter what type of regulatory regime or how strict the regulatory process is in your state, more startups will have the opportunity to launch, more small businesses will be able to grow, and firms of all sizes can bring new products to market in less time. This general perspective represents a real shift from the more punitive approaches that we see towards more involvement and partnerships with business to tackle the regulatory problems or barriers. When these barriers are lessened, as I noted earlier, it will help to strengthen state economies and states' competitiveness. And this is why this 2-year project is important to NGA and to governors and states. For NGA, this brings a bipartisan perspective to this work. And to governors and states, again, it strengthens, has the potential of strengthening regional economies and state competitiveness. The states and territories that are chosen to participate in this policy academy can realize a variety of benefits. Let me just highlight 6 benefits very briefly here. They were outlined in the RFP, so this will be a bit of a review. But first, we'll be covering the travel for state teams up to 6 individuals to attend 2 cross-state policy academy meetings. These are going to be important meetings where a lot of peer learning can happen from the exchange between the teams from the 6 states. Second, states will have access to NGA and Pew staff and other national subject matter experts through in-state site visits and regular coaching calls and possibly webinars. The in-state site visits are when a team will come to your state and work directly with your team on issues that you are grappling with, and also bringing the lessons we've learned from our research and from other states. Third, access to other states and organizations to identify best practices and to share lessons learned. A fourth benefit is opportunities to strengthen the relationships among key policy makers within your own state through facilitated coaching. When we've gotten feedback from states that have participated in policy academies in the past, one of the things that they really appreciated was the opportunity to sit down with their peers from across agencies to work on a specific topic. In their day-to-day work lives, they don't always get those opportunities. So this has been very positive feedback we've gotten from states on that opportunity and benefit. The fifth one is the creation of policies for systemic change that directly supports economic development through the formation and the implementation of a state action plan that leads to improving business regulation in your state. The state action plan is an important part of the process of participating in a policy academy. And the technical assistance that you'll get from the NGA-Pew team will support your efforts to develop that action plan. And then the sixth benefit is additional customized technical assistance that is directly customized, if you will, to the specific issues that you may have in your state and the priorities that you want to focus on that you've identified in your action plan. And also we look at the progress that you're making towards that action plan and how technical assistance can build on that progress. There are other larger benefits from improving regulations, for example, protecting public health and worker safety. So those are the main benefits that we see that will accrue to you for participation in this policy academy. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Pearson from Pew, who's going to talk about the Pew activities that led up to partnering with NGA on this policy academy. Sharon?
She unmuted.
Pew Charitable Trusts report on. Oh, can everyone hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Let me. So
You might want to start over.
Slow down. I'll slow down a little bit and repeat myself. So I'm going to take a few minutes to discuss the Pew Charitable Trusts report on state regulatory process improvement and steps that states can take to get started. Okay, my slide is not adjusting, but hopefully we can go to my next slide. Can you guys try to forward for me? Thank you. So state lawmakers and economic development managers are always looking for opportunities to improve the regulatory climate for businesses. But too often, proposed solutions set up a false choice between growing the economy and adequately protecting public health, the environment, and consumers. The result is an unproductive debate between eliminating as many rules as possible or preserving each one at all costs without regard for changing circumstances. Advocates for less regulation sometimes ignore the many important reasons that rules are put in place. Regulatory systems that function efficiently with strong management oversight help to minimize negative impacts while providing fair rules of the game, giving businesses less to fear from competitors who might exploit dysfunctional regulatory systems to cut their costs unfairly. But governments can undermine opportunities for investment and job creation when businesses are forced to spend too much time or money navigating inefficient or unnecessary regulatory processes, or when new projects are delayed or canceled because companies don't understand how to comply with the rules or they can't afford to. As research by the Pew Charitable Trusts illustrates, improvements in how regulatory agencies interact with businesses can make launching a company or bringing an innovative product to the market quicker and easier. And by administering regulations more effectively and partnering with the private sector, states can lower compliance costs for businesses while still achieving important goals such as protecting the environment and public health. See if we can go to my next slide. Within the report, we recommend 3 strategies that states can focus on. First, states can improve the efficiency of their regulatory systems so that the businesses can comply with rules in a less costly and time-consuming manner. Second, states can partner with businesses to increase compliance as well as economic opportunity. And finally, states should measure and maintain their progress. Our first recommendation is that states should improve efficiency. The regulatory processes that state agencies administer tend to become more complex over time. There's a value in stepping back and taking a comprehensive look at what is required from a business's vantage point. For example, in 2015, Arizona held a permit blitz to improve how dozens of permits were administered. It brought together officials from 23 agencies to work on 40 permit processes. At the end of the project, the state reported that the decision timelines for these permits were reduced, on average, by more than 60%. The state of Wisconsin corrected a problem with water quality permitting by moving their application system online. Before moving this process online, they were receiving incorrect forms more than 30 times per month, and fixing those errors could require up to 12 staff members. Now, the state operates an online platform that helps applicants determine which permits they need and how to apply for them. It has greatly reduced the number of errors to only about 1 every 6 months. Processing timelines have also been cut between 30 and 50% on average. Our second recommendation is that states should partner with businesses to help them anticipate and navigate regulatory requirements. States can do this in several ways. They can provide assistance to help inform businesses as they navigate regulations and to help them overcome obstacles instead of waiting to catch errors or noncompliance. They can offer services to projects in the first phases of development or by guiding businesses through the regulatory process and increasing predictability. This approach positions states to support economic growth while protecting public health and safety. For example, Washington State has developed a site feasibility worksheet to help manufacturing firms understand and consider all the regulatory repercussions of various site options. And Ohio has a compliance assistance team that provides free, customized, and confidential support to help businesses become compliant and stay that way. For example, the state helps small businesses with complicated emissions calculations that determine whether a business needs air quality permits to operate, and if so, which ones. Finally, we recommend that states improve the effectiveness of their reform efforts by setting statewide goals and ensuring that progress is maintained. Setting goals can be a guidepost for all state agencies. They can also inform the public about the state government's priorities and progress. All right, move on to there we go, the last slide. The NGA and Pew Policy Academy is designed to help states apply these concepts. We've highlighted 5 states 5 steps for states to follow as they participate in the Academy. Step 1 is to select a strategic focus. States will take a targeted approach that uses their economic development strategy as a guide. For example, states could prioritize helping entrepreneurs get up and running more quickly. They could target emerging industries that are important to future economic growth, or zero in geographically, focusing on a particular region or on rural areas. And then step 2 is assessing the current state. In order to measure improvements, it is essential to develop a baseline. How long does it take to start a new business or bring a new product to market? What are the costs to the businesses? What is the cost of the delay? Is economic activity foregone in the meantime? And step 3 is to set a goal that is linked to economic outcomes. The aim of reform will generally be to reduce the time and cost associated with a regulatory process. We hope to help states create standards for how to set these goals. However, we would also encourage states to link such goals to key economic outcomes. So, is there evidence to support the idea that reducing time for a particular process will yield benefits for the state economy? By pursuing these goals would not require loosening the rules. In fact, by making compliance easier and cheaper, states have found that more businesses do follow the rules. The next step would be to map out the regulatory experience of targeted businesses, focusing on improving how they are regulated rather than on the rules themselves. This process will include identifying the points in the process where it slows down, where communication and transparency are lacking, where enforcement actions are commonly taken that could be avoided, and so on. The state can then identify solutions that will help close the gap between the baseline and the goal. The goal of this project would be to help states with ideas and evidence on what works and what doesn't, and ways to help implement those reforms. And finally, we would encourage states to track and publicly report on progress towards their goals. And this has 3 benefits. It drives statewide public-private partnership for ongoing improvement. It is also essential for determining what is working and what still needs to be tweaked. And being able to report on how much easier it is to launch a business or expand a business improves a state competitiveness. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sally for details about the request for proposal. Pew is really looking forward to this partnership with NGA and the selected states. So over to you, Sally.
Thank you, Sharon. Am I on? So now we're going to talk about the Policy Academy itself and what you might expect other than the benefits that Martin already mentioned earlier. As noted in the request for proposals, the state proposals are due on September 20th, 2019 at 5 p.m. Happens to be my birthday, so I hope to get lots of presents from the state. During the last week of September, we'll be reviewing the proposals and selecting the states. And at this point, we think the cohort will involve 6 states, and that's what we're planning for. Once the cohort of states is announced at the end of September, the Policy Academy activities will begin immediately at the beginning of October. NGA will be coordinating and conducting its activities with Pew's Economic Development Team, headed by Jeff Chapman, and eventually with Pew's university-based consultants. In October and November of this year, the NGA-Pew team will conduct site visits to each of the participating states. And the purpose of these initial site visits will be for orientation and preliminary technical assistance related to the state's goals. Each of the participating states will establish goals for their work with the project, and some examples of state goals might be to expand business participation with the state processes for regulations, or to scale a regulatory reform pilot initiative. Just examples. Each of the state team members should plan to be involved in those state site visits, along with any additional state leaders that might be applicable to advance the state's plan and priorities. In early December, we'll hold the first Cross-State Policy Academy meeting, and all of the state teams will participate in that cross-state meeting and share their goals for the Policy Academy work with each other. NGA will be providing the travel support for all of the state team members to attend the cross-state meetings. And at the first cross-state meeting, we'll also focus on finalizing a scope of work and longer-term timeline for the overall Policy Academy project. In addition to establishing goals over the course of the project, the states will also be refining their action plans to achieve the goals. For example, if a state's goal is to scale a regulatory reform pilot initiative, then the state's action plan will include the steps necessary to bring to scale the lessons learned from the pilot. The action plans would also cover assessing and mapping data using Pew's 5-step approach that Sharon just went through. Between this fall and the end of the Policy Academy in the fall of 2021, together we will conduct monthly calls with each of the states to further develop the action plans and collect data on business strategies. We'll also conduct a second set of state site visits and conduct a second cross-state meeting. As the state priorities and action plans emerge, the technical assistance provided by the subject matter experts brought in by Pew will become more customized over time. Through this work, Pew will be focusing largely on the use of data. As noted earlier, the Pew research phase created a 5-step process for collecting baseline data based on state economic development strategies, such as, for example, entrepreneurship or targeting emerging high-growth companies or zeroing in on a region or a rural area. And the states will be expected through the Policy Academy to create a data-oriented deliverable of some sort, such as, for example, a dashboard that integrates state data with outside data, or a focus group that initiates a dialogue with businesses around metrics relevant to economic development. By the end of the 2 years, the ultimate outcomes of the state's work with the Policy Academy might include, for example, an executive order, a pilot program, a funding strategy, a legislative change, or some other state-level outcome. The Policy Academy will require a long-term commitment by the selected states to implement the action plans that they developed during the 2 years of the Policy Academy. At the end of the project, the NGA Center will compile a final report based largely on the examples and lessons learned by the involved states. So, we're on the next slide. Thank you. In terms of eligibility, this opportunity is open to all states and territories, and the states and territories' proposal narratives cannot exceed 10 single-spaced pages. The proposal narrative includes these 3 sections that are outlined in the RFP: the state context and vision for policy change, the state's goals and strategies, and the state team itself. The following 3 items are required but do not count towards the 10-page limit. And those 3 items are the required cover sheet as described in the RFP, a letter of support from the governor, and third, the state's initial action plan using the template in Appendix B to the RFP. And we're on the next slide. Each proposal can receive up to 100 points. The cover sheets and initial action plans will not be scored. The other elements of the proposal, however, can receive up to the number of points as shown here on this slide that I hope everybody can see. I'm not going to read through everything on this slide. In closing, we think this will be a really good investment of time for new state administrations, but whether you're a new state administration or a continuing one will not enter into the selection criteria. And also just a quick reminder that NGA is a bipartisan organization, so that aspect will also not have anything to do with the state selections as well. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and leave up the slide up that has our phone numbers and contact information. If you want to follow up this bidders call with additional questions. But we'd like to open up the floor to anybody who's on the line, and I know quite a number of states are here with us today, to either email us through the Zoom application, or to speak directly to us and to the rest of the webinar participants. And I'm going to turn it over to Candace to run that Q&A section of the webinar. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you would like to ask a question about anything that has been covered today by Sally, Martin, and Sharon, you have two options. One, you can use the raise your hand feature that's on your screen, and I can unmute your line so you can ask a live question. Or you're also welcome to use the chat function in Zoom, and we will read your question out loud. So please submit your questions now.
And again, we want to thank everybody for being on the call and for your interest in this topic. We think it's going to be a really exciting project.
Okay, so we have a few questions that have been submitted so far. One question reads, do you have recommendations on the type of state team members that would be most valuable for this academy from outside government? For example, business leader, consumer advocate, etc.
I mean, I think that all of those examples would be great members of the state team. I think that, sorry, this is Sharon from Pew. I think that a lot of what we recommend is the state coordinating with business, but that could also be, you know, an activity that happens outside the Policy Academy. The 6 people from your state that participate, it might make more sense for them to all be folks from the different state agencies that need to work together in coordination, and then you can come up with an action plan that then reaches out to the outside community. But again, this is not like a one-size-fits-all program. It's what you think works best for your state and the folks that you would like to include.
Thank you, Sharon. Martin or Sally, do you guys want to add anything?
I would just suggest you might want to think about somebody from a Chamber of Commerce at the state level if you think that's appropriate, and then that organization in turn can help reach out to additional businesses in the state over time.
Great. Our next question is, can the presentation and slide deck be made available to participants? If so, when?
You can answer that.
So we are recording this webinar right now, and so the recording and the slides will be available on the NGA website, I would say probably next week sometime.
Yeah, and as soon as they are, this is Sally, I will send out a message to far and wide to my listserv members, and also work through other organizations, and Pew will do the same.
We'll also send the link to everyone that has signed up for this webinar today. The next question is, have there been previous cohorts of this Policy Academy?
No, there haven't. This is the first Policy Academy that NGA has done on this particular topic.
And that's why we're so excited about it.
So those are all of the questions that we've received thus far. We still have time, so I'm encouraging you to either raise your hand for a live question or continue to submit questions via the chat function.
No live questions so far?
Not yet.
We'll just wait for another minute or two in case people are pondering what their question might be or how to word it. And again, you can follow up with these emails that are on the screen now to send us messages or questions separately. I'm hoping that the reason there's not many questions is because the RFP is so clear.
So we have another question that just came in, and it reads, with regard to the RFP submitted by states, are we supposed to identify our own solutions, or will that be a collaborative process after the states are selected?
Let me start answering that question. You should identify what are the particular barriers or issues you want to focus on, and then if you have some ideas on how you want to approach it, that can be included in your response to the RFP, and then also what are you already doing in your state that you're building on in addressing the particular barriers that you want to, or in partnering business around your regulatory processes. But there will be a part of participating in the Policy Academy is to find solutions, solutions that other states may have, or that have been documented in research.
Sharon, would you like to add anything to that?
I actually think that Martin described it perfectly. I think that, I mean, if you have an idea of what you'd like to fix, that's great. And also, if you know that you have some general ideas, or there's just some processes that you know that you'd like to focus on with, the focus on improving your state's economic activity, I think that finding solutions along the way is really what we're hoping to do.
And this is Sally. I'd just like to add that one of the required items to be submitted as part of the proposal from the state is an initial act. We're specifically calling it an initial action plan, using the template in the second appendix to the RFP. But that initial action plan, again, it's an initial one, will not be ranked or rated, and 0 points will be attached to it. It's just to show that you have gotten started thinking about what some of the elements of your action plan that you'll be developing during the Policy Academy will be about.
This is Martin. Let me add to that. The action plan is more your process to getting to the solutions. It isn't necessarily the solutions. Now, I think the action plan calls for an outcome. That may be what outcome you're hoping to achieve through this process. But again, as we've all said, part of your participation is to help find solutions.
Awesome. So we have a few more questions that have come in. Scott Hilton in Georgia says hi to everyone. And his question
Hi,
is,
Scott.
Does Pew or NGA currently maintain rankings for states on business regulation friendliness or ease of doing business? Do you plan to develop this type of ranking to help measure our progress?
NGA does not have rankings of states, and we tend not to rank states. Sharon, I'm not sure if Pew has done that.
Right. Pew doesn't rank states on this topic either, and I don't think that we have plans to. But we are looking forward to helping. And I know that there are other organizations out there that do rankings on, business-friendly indicators that often include the regulatory environment, but that's not something that Pew does.
Okay. So we have a follow-up question to the criteria that Sally was referencing. It says, how much weight will be given to novelty? Meaning, if this is used as an extension of ongoing efforts in the state, will it be scored lower than tackling a novel issue?
The quick answer is no. The idea is how it all fits together in your overall proposal.
Yeah, we certainly are looking for innovative approaches that And if that innovation is expanding on something that you already have in place, and you are looking for how to enhance that in some creative ways, that would actually be viewed as a positive approach. So, but you certainly wouldn't be penalized for novelty.
Sharon, did you have anything to add?
I was going to say, we certainly don't want to penalize you for doing good work on this topic. So it wouldn't be a hindrance for you to submit a proposal building on the work you're already doing.
Great. So we have another question that says, what if you know you need buy-in from an area or agency, but don't have it for the initial application?
My suggestion is if it's a group that you currently work with, you can make a reference to that work or partnership that you're doing with them, which will count, but you don't necessarily need to have a supportive letter from every single organization that you mention in your proposal. The letter from the governor, however, is important.
How this has been handled in past applications is that that may be one of the challenges you have, is to engage a certain agency, and that can be part of your action plan. So, not all agencies are quickly on board, and so if in fact you have an agency that may be resisting, or you haven't had the opportunity to engage because it's not something you do on a regular basis, I would suggest that you include that as part of the strategy that you need to take on as part of being part of this Policy Academy.
Okay, we have another question that is asking for more elaboration. It says, can you elaborate on the input and value add of NGA and Pew over the course of the 2 years of this Policy Academy?
Sharon, you want to talk a little bit more about Pew and your data effort?
Well, we are currently working with Shelley Metzenbaum, who I'm sure that a few of you on the call are familiar with, on just talking through ways to measure the impact, the economic impact of this activity. And so that is something that we are really committed to working on over the next 2 years. Is let's see the measurement of doing this work and see how that affects the economic activity in your state. But a lot of this will be Pew and NGA supporting the teams, the state teams, in what they are hoping to achieve. We will connect you with experts. We will help coach you through, if you have difficult meetings with other agency heads, and that sort of thing. We'll definitely be supportive partners who provide additional research, hopefully best practices. Leading up to the report that we released, Pew did hundreds of interviews with folks all around the country about the work that they've done. So we're hoping to use those examples so that states don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can share what other states are doing. And so we hope that we would just be valued partners, and that all three of us, the state, NGA, and Pew, would all be learning as we go.
Wonderful answer.
Let me underscore a couple of the points. The one that Sharon was, we will be bringing you the national experts, subject matter experts on this, and the expertise that both NGA and Pew have on this topic. Also, the opportunity to work with other states. One of the feedback, again, that we've gotten from states in past policy academies is that opportunity to both share solutions and work through solutions is highly valued. This is also one of the benefits that I listed. A lot of policymakers in states don't have the luxury of being able to dedicate time to a specific topic, and this academy, particularly when we bring together the state teams, gives that dedicated time that they may not have the luxury of during the regular course of their work. And then the site visits, we bring a third-party facilitation to your teams when we do the site visits. If you've identified a particular area where we can bring in a subject matter expert that is specific to your needs in your state, that's another benefit that you would receive from participating in this Policy Academy.
Yeah, to underscore that last point by Martin, it's difficult to respond any further on the content part of the value add without knowing what's in your state proposals at this point in time.
Great. So Scott in Georgia sends his thanks. He also shares that Georgia is using thumbtack and Kaufman as a measure and appreciates the information. Another participant by the last name of Pinder says that Paychex, CHEXX, does a ranking of the ease of business regulation. So, helpful information for folks on the call. We haven't received any other questions via the chat function or the live questions with raise your hand. So I guess we can give folks another minute or so to ask any final questions before we close out. Okay, I will hand it back over to Sally for the closing.
Well, thank you, Candace, and thank everybody again for being on the call, and we'll look forward to all your proposals on September 20th or your email questions before then. Happy to answer those, and we're really looking forward to working with our states on this new issue that we'll be tackling here at NGA with Pew's partnership. Thank you again.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.